My name is Naomi Lilly, and I'm 29. The night I learned love can snap in a single sentence, I had $8,000 in my jacket pocket and a timeline mapped to candlelight. I run Creek Valley Landscapes, not a guy in a pickup operation, but corporate campuses and 50K backyard transformations, stone saws singing at sunrise. Marcus, my partner, handles bids when I'm buried in field schedules. Last year we cleared 380K. I like numbers that line up, lines that stay straight, hedges that keep their shape. You can build an entire life out of straight lines if you're careful. I thought I had. Mason, 27, started at Pinnacle Marketing 2 years ago. Smart, boyish grin, a mind that could sprint. He'd joined under Jessica, senior account manager, the ex he swore was ancient history. And it made him nervous. "We're good," he'd said. "She moved on ages ago." He said it like a prayer, and I wanted to believe that prayers and promotions didn't mix. That Friday, the plan was choreographed. Bella Vista, corner booth, the river-knifing black glass under the windows. I'd driven by on Tuesday to study the lighting on the marble. The ring's vintage setting caught Amber best at 7:10 p.m. He was late. 10 minutes, then 12. When he slid into the passenger seat, he smelled like crisp cologne and office air. He stared at his phone, thumb skidding like a nervous tick. "Long day?" I asked, aiming for light. He smiled without looking. "Yeah, Jessica's new pitch. Big client." Jessica. The name landed like a nickel in my throat. Small, metallic, impossible to swallow. I drove. He was quiet. The river cut the city into a pulse of lights, and somewhere between bridges I felt time hesitate as if deciding which way to fall. At Bella Vista, the host recognized me. "Corner booth," I said. We sat. Candle, linen. A view that made the city look like it was keeping a secret. Mason pushed pasta around his plate. He always ordered ossobuco and ate like it anchored him to earth. Tonight he treated food like evidence. His phone face down on the table, vibrating in short bursts he pretended not to hear. I talked about practical things. Our trip to his parents next month, replacing the blower on the Walker mower, the corporate campus who might want a perennial plan. I watched his face for the part where he softened, where he looked at me and saw the life we were building. It didn't come. He set his fork down carefully, like he was returning a scalpel. "Naomi, we need to talk." My heart knew the script before my brain did. My fingers went numb. The ring box became hot in its small, dark pocket. "Talk about what?" My voice was steady. I was proud of that. "Us. Where this is going." He stared at his hands. "I have been doing a lot of thinking." "Say it," I thought. "If you're going to split a life, do it clean." "I think we should take a break." The words felt cold, like someone had opened a freezer behind me. A break. I repeated it silently. The candle snapped and resettled. "From what?" I asked softly. "From the mortgage we were sending each other on Zillow? From weekends with your parents? From the ring I stopped. Swallowed the rest like glass. His eyes flicked up, guilty. "We keep talking about these things," he said, "but I don't know if my heart is really in it. Maybe we've grown apart. I need space to figure out what I want." "What you want," I said, "or what Jessica wants you to want." Flush. He dropped his gaze. "This isn't about her." "It never is," I said, and heard the steel in my voice. "Except she's been in your ear for months about how you're settling, about how you need someone who gets the industry. She's just looking out for me as a colleague." "Right. Your colleague who once dated you, who runs your performance reviews, who schedules your evenings, who texts through our dinners." Silence spread like a stain. I could see our reflections in the window, the soft city, my face hardening into something I didn't recognize yet. There's a point where dignity is heavier than hope. I reached into my jacket and set the box on the table between us. The lid caught the candlelight and threw it back in small, defiant sparks. His breath snagged. "Naomi, is that—" "Yeah," I said, opening it. The ring glowed like a kept promise. "This is what I was going to ask you tonight, to start our real life." I studied the stone for a second longer, then closed the box. "But you don't deserve it." "Please," he said, panic cracking through politeness. Can we please talk?" "We did," I said, tucking the box away. "You made your choice when you let Jessica live in your head." I left $150 under the water glass because the staff didn't deserve our wreckage, and I walked out of the restaurant with my spine straight and my lungs on fire. The drive home was a smear of red lights and white lines. In my kitchen, I poured 3 fingers of whiskey and set the ring on the counter like a meteor I didn't remember catching. I tried to make my breathing obey my body again. I should have put the phone in a drawer. Instead, I opened Instagram. The first story at the top, green ring around it, the close friend's halo, was Jessica. A bar I recognized, neon bleeding through sweat and music. The camera panned across a small sun of executives and interns, and there, right in the center, was Mason. He was laughing. He was pressed against Danielle from his office. Dark hair, short dress, a confident way of owning the room. His hands at her waist, hers looped behind his neck. The way they moved made a break sound like a punchline. I stared. Then the little green badge on the story tightened into focus. Not public. Jessica had curated the audience for this. Only me. I felt my hand steady. I took screenshots. The timestamp, the tag, the video itself. Evidence. Words are malleable, pixels aren't. At 1:47 a.m. my phone rang. Mason. Against every instinct I answered. The part of me that still wanted mercy lifted the receiver. "Naomi, please," he said, already crying. "Please let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "That you needed space to figure out what you want, and 3 hours later discovered it was Danielle's perfume?" "It wasn't. Jessica took me out because I was devastated about dinner. I drank too much. Danielle was there from the office. Jessica thought it would help me feel better." "Oh," I said, my voice going very calm. "So Jessica was your wing woman. How efficient." "It didn't mean anything," he said, and I could hear him hear himself. "Nothing ever does," I said. "Not the house we almost rented. Not the ring in my jacket. Not the way you looked at me a month ago when you said you wanted a garden with a cherry tree. It's all weather to you." "That isn't fair." "You know what isn't fair?" I asked. "Spending 3 months customizing a ring, planning the light on the table, and having my boyfriend dump me, then watch him grind on a colleague while his ex-girlfriend hands me front row tickets." He sobbed into the line. "Can we meet tomorrow? I need to see you, please." "No," I said, "we're done." And I cut the call. Then, hand shaking only a little, I blocked his number. The apartment went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator click. I thought about the ring. I thought about Jessica's precision, how she'd aimed the story's audience like a dart. I thought about how Mason had looked at his phone all night, as if waiting for instructions. Somewhere upstairs, a neighbor laughed in their sleep. I rinsed the glass, set it upside down on a towel, and leaned my palms on the counter. If Jessica wanted to play games, I would learn the rules faster. If she wanted to choreograph a betrayal, I would document the dance. I was raised on straight lines. I could draw a trap that way too. I picked up my phone and turned the screenshots into a folder. I named it Lighting. Because when you want the truth to be undeniable, you don't shout. You flip on the right switch. And the room changes shape. 3 weeks after the breakup, that wasn't a break, my chest learned a new language, a stutter of birds trapped inside my ribs. I was on the Walker mower behind Building C of the tech park when the world tipped 30 degrees. The lawn bucked, the asphalt shimmered, and a circle of sky narrowed to a tunnel with teeth. I braked hard, killed the engine, and sat there gripping the wheel while the turf blurred into a watercolor. Someone shouted my name. Then a hand, Marcus's, closed around my shoulder. "Naomi, hey, you're gray." He drove me to the ER with the hazard lights tattooing orange on the dashboard. I kept saying I was fine, which is what stubborn people say when they're scared. My heart did a tripwire rhythm the entire way. In triage, a nurse with gentle eyes clipped a monitor to my finger. The numbers made small mountains. The beeps were too fast. "Supraventricular tachycardia," the ER doc said after the EKG, like it was a train station I'd never planned to visit. "Likely genetic. Stress is a switch. The circuit in your heart misfires, loops on itself, speeds you up." Speed is useful when you're chasing contracts. Less useful when you're lying under fluorescent lights watching your pulse play percussion on your throat. They scheduled a cardiac ablation for the next morning. "We'll thread thin catheters through a vein to your heart, map the faulty pathways, and burn the bad loop," the electrophysiologist said, drawing calm circles in the air. "You'll be under anesthesia 3 to 4 hours. 2 days of observation. Most people go home fine." Most people. I stared at the ceiling tiles and thought about all the mosts I had believed in lately. I texted my mother, who lives in Da Nang most of the year, to be near her sisters. Don't panic. She panicked. She was on the next flight. Marcus shuffled our schedule, called the corporate campuses, and said words like backlog and reschedule with a gentleness that didn't match his linebacker build. My older sister, Lila, texted 15 variations of "Do you need me?" followed by a photo of her toddler putting band-aids on a stuffed fox. I screenshotted that and saved it because the human heart breaks toward tender things. Pre-op, a nurse asked when I'd last eaten. No food since last night, I said. She asked if I had someone to drive me home. Yes, I lied automatically. I was not planning to lean on anyone. The irony of that was not lost on the electrophysiologist about to burn away the part of me that loved loops. The anesthesia was a curtain that fell without a whisper. I dreamed I was mowing a lawn that kept growing back behind me, and every pass just made it lusher and more impossible to finish. I woke up to a weight on my tongue and a light trying to fit in my eyes. The monitor showed a calmer cityscape. The numbers had learned manners. Procedure went smoothly, the doctor said. We found the re-entry circuit and ablated it. We want to watch you overnight. The morning after surgery, I was drifting in that cottony space between pain and placebo when there was a soft knock on my door. I thought it was my mother returning with coffee mispronunciations and fierce little hands. I said, "Come in," without opening my eyes. The flowers arrived first, white lilies and something expensive that tried too hard to smell like spring. Then the voice. Warm honey poured over a blade. Oh, thank God, Jessica said, stepping inside like she was already in the family photograph. You're okay. For a second, disorientation made me polite. She was in a fitted blazer, hair glossy, makeup doing that no makeup thing. She set the bouquet on the table and moved with the gentle efficiency of a person who has seen a lot of hospital rooms, except everything about her care felt staged, like a script she'd bought wholesale. I swallowed. How did you even know I was here? Word gets around at Pinnacle, she said, soft smile. And I still follow Marcus for the business updates. She didn't say, and I follow you too, but the air held it like perfume. She reached for my hand where the IV taped it pale. I was too slow to pull away before she cupped it, warm and soft. Naomi, I need you to know how terrible I feel about everything with Mason. You didn't deserve that. You're a good woman, ambitious, kind. It's rare. If she'd come in with fangs, I would have known where to put my fear. Instead, she brought caretaking like an offering, refilling my water, raising the bed 2 degrees, pretending to read the pain scale chart like it mattered to her if I was at a 6 or a 7. Your business, she said, eyes bright. Building it from nothing? That's incredible. I see that. Truly. She emphasized, I like it was a gift. I watched her shape the room, rearrange objects, smooth the blanket until the narrative fit her hands. Between compliments, she threaded tiny needles into the past. Mason always spoke so highly of you, she said, but he's easily influenced. He needs someone grounded. She let the sentence dangle, a bridge she hoped I'd cross. This was the same woman who had constructed a stage for my humiliation, who curated a close friends list to point a laser dot at my heart. Here she was repositioning herself as the rescuer after the fire she had set. Efficient. Surgical. If you've ever pruned a rosebush, you know not to cut where you're angry. You step back. You study the lines. You decide what shape you want when it grows back. So I didn't yank my hand away. I let her perform her goodness. I let her linger, asking about drainage and discharge instructions, as if she might take me home and tuck me in. I nodded when she praised my grit. I agreed vaguely when she said Pinnacle would love to have more accounts like ours on their roster someday. I didn't trust a single word. What I did trust were records. In my state, one-party consent is the law. You can record a conversation if at least one of you knows. I stared at the whiteboard on the wall with my date of birth and the name of the nurse on duty, and I made a plan the way I make planting schedules in March, ruthlessly, with room for weather. Jessica stayed almost 3 hours. When she finally stood to leave, she bent and kissed my forehead like a benediction she thought she'd earned. The world would be darker without you in it, she whispered. It should have been sweet. It tasted like strategy. After she left, silence fell hard, and with it, the weight of what had just happened. The room smelled like lilies and disinfectant, and a narrative I refused to live inside. My phone vibrated with a text from Marcus. All quiet. Contracts holding. I'll bring real coffee later. A minute later, another. Your mom's plane lands at noon. She says to tell you she'll beat the arrhythmia with soup. I smiled for the first time that day. It hurt a little. Then I opened the Notes app and started a new page. Jessica, hospital visit. 10:12 a.m., 1:06 p.m. Bullet points. The phrasing she used. The way she tried to rewrite her history with my name as the hero. The exact moment she tested whether I would return the touch of her hand. When you build retaining walls, you learn to respect pressure. Water finds seams. Roots bend stone. If you don't give a force somewhere to go, it will unhouse you. So you design for it. You drill weep holes. You stack your blocks with a slight tilt back. You decide where the pressure drains. My pressure would drain into documentation. By afternoon, my mother was in the chair by the window, scolding the American coffee and arranging bouquets into something that looked less like a funeral. She tucked the blanket around my feet and told me in Vietnamese that my heart had always been too big, as if musculature could be argued into submission. I let her fuss. It's a kind of love. That night, when she dozed with her chin on her chest and the room hummed with machine lullabies, I opened my messages. A new text sat there like a pearl with a worm inside. Jessica, hope you're feeling better. If you need anything, groceries, soup, a ride, I'm here, truly. I stared at the screen until the words separated into individual letters and then reassembled into scaffolding. Support beams, a staging platform. I typed back deliberately, choosing neutral over need. Thanks for checking in. Recovery is slow, but I'm managing. Appreciate the thought. Her reply came fast, as if she'd been waiting in the hallway outside my life for the knob to turn. I keep thinking about how unfairly life has treated you lately. First Mason, then this health scare. You deserve better than both. Better than both. I could almost hear the audition in it. I set the phone down. I looked at my sleeping mother. I listened to my new heart rhythm, steady, as if someone had taught it a better song. If Jessica wanted to ghostwrite the story, she would find the narrator had receipts. If she wanted me vulnerable, she would learn that vulnerability can be disciplined, too. The next morning, the nurse removed the IV with a flourish, taped a square of gauze to the crook of my elbow, and told me I was cleared for discharge with strict orders to take it easy for 2 weeks. Marcus signed out at the desk as if checking out a chainsaw. Solemn, careful. He walked me to the car with my mother carrying soup I was not permitted to refuse. From the passenger seat, I watched the hospital shrink in the rear view and felt something else sharpen in its place. Not grief, not even anger, a line, a plan. We passed the river, and it threw back the morning in bright, harmless pieces. My phone buzzed again. Jessica, call when you're home. I'd love to hear your voice. I swiped the message open. I pressed the side button once, then again. The screen went dark, my reflection briefly visible. Tired, yes, but steady. I lifted the phone to my ear and felt my mouth shape a word that meant both yes and go ahead, and I will not forget. Hi, Jessica, I said, and in my state, that was all the consent the law required. Some people think a trap is cruel. I think of it like a level, a simple tool that tells you what's true. When people ask how I kept my composure, I tell them it's simple. I treated Jessica like a client. You don't fight a manipulator by shouting. You let her build her own stage while you wire it for sound. The first few days home after the procedure were quiet. My mother filled the house with the smell of ginger broth and overprotection. Marcus texted spreadsheets. Life looked almost normal, except for the new rhythm under my skin and the steady stream of messages from Jessica. Hope you slept well. How's your pulse today? Thinking about you. At first, I ignored them. Then I realized silence gave her room to script whatever story she wanted. So I replied, measured, polite, and recordable. Recovery is slow but manageable. Appreciate you checking in. Predictably, she took that as permission. Her texts began to bloom, long paragraphs, gilded with compliments. You've always had this energy. Even when we met years ago at Mason's party, I could see how grounded you were. Mason never deserved that kind of loyalty. I sat on my couch reading each message, hearing how her self-justification coiled around her guilt. Every, "You're incredible," was really, "I'm not the villain, right?" I hit record every time her name lit the screen. 3 nights later, she called. Naomi, you sound tired. Are you resting enough? I was, in fact, editing invoices, but I made my voice soft. Trying to. I've been thinking a lot about you, she said. About how unfair all of this has been. Mason breaking your heart, your health scare. It's too much. You deserve someone who can actually appreciate you. Someone like who? I asked lightly. Silence. Then the smallest exhale. Someone who sees you for who you are. The recording app's red dot blinked patiently. She went on, looping her contrition and admiration like ribbon. I never told you this, but I always thought you were too good for Mason. Even when he and I dated, I could tell you'd end up outgrowing him. He's complacent. You're not. Every word was calculated. a conversion pitch disguised as confession. Jessica, I said, keeping my tone neutral, you and Mason were together a long time. Doesn't it feel strange saying that? I've changed, she replied quickly. That was years ago. We're different people now. A tiny tremor in her voice, half thrill, half fear, told me she knew what she was doing was reckless. But she couldn't stop herself. I let her talk until she ran out of justifications. Then I ended with, thanks for checking in. I need to rest now. When the call ended, I saved the file, labeled it, Hospital Call 1, Flirtation Start. Within a week, I had 12 recordings. In one, she admitted, I told Mason maybe he wasn't ready for someone as driven as you. I might have planted that seed. I thought I was protecting him from heartbreak. Protecting him. The word reeked of performance. Another call. I think about you more than I should. It's like everything that happened made me realize what I really want in life. I answered, and what's that? Someone like you, Naomi. Someone who doesn't crumble. I stared at my reflection in the dark phone screen as her voice spilled through the speaker. Manipulators always confess if you make them feel safe enough. They mistake composure for complicity. By the 5th day, she was texting photos. Dinner setups, candles, wine glasses, selfies with, long day, wish you were here to talk. I took screenshots, everyone. The real turning point came when she called past midnight. Her voice was thick with wine and what she called honesty. I need to tell you something, she began. You'll hate me, but I have to say it. I let the silence invite her. I told Mason to take a break from you. That got my attention. You did what? He came to me for advice, Naomi. He said he felt stuck. I said maybe you both needed space. I swear I didn't think he'd... Her voice cracked into a sob. I was jealous, okay? I wanted him to fail at love so he'd maybe see me again. The words were tremulous, but the tone was almost relieved, like a thief caught mid-sprint who's secretly grateful the chase is over. I let her cry. I even murmured, that must have been hard to admit, which was true in the way that performing guilt is hard when you've never practiced sincerity. Inside, my pulse was steady as marble. When she hung up, I sat for a long time in the dark, phone still recording the ambient hum of my living room. The clock ticked loud enough to sound like applause. By the end of the week, my folder looked like a lawyer's dream. 47 screenshots of text exchanges, 12 audio recordings of phone calls, time-stamped notes of her visits and confessions. I saved everything twice, once on my laptop, once on a cloud drive under a different name. I labeled the folder, Lighting, Phase 2. Marcus noticed I was calmer. You sure you're resting? He asked. Planning is rest, I said, smiling faintly. The next afternoon, Jessica called again, voice bright and domestic. Guess what? I brought Thai takeout. Your favorite, pad ki mao. Can I swing by? I hesitated just long enough to sound reluctant. I suppose I could use company. She arrived an hour later, balancing paper bags and self-righteous cheer. You shouldn't be alone during recovery. She unpacked food into porcelain dishes like it was a date, cloth napkins, a bottle of white wine with a ribbon. She even lit a candle. You didn't have to. I wanted to, she said quickly, taking the seat opposite me. Honestly, Naomi, you amaze me. Most people would fall apart after everything you've been through. That's kind of you, I said. Mason said something similar once. She laughed, brittle. Mason says a lot. He doesn't always mean it. Then she leaned in, voice low. Do you ever think about what might have happened if we'd met under different circumstances? The air tightened. I glanced at my phone on the table, recording. What do you mean? I mean, she said softly, I can't stop thinking about you. The silence between us was surgical. She wanted me to rescue her from it, to make the moment real. Instead, I reached for my wine and said, That's a complicated thing to say, Jessica. I know, she whispered, but life's too short to pretend. She stayed 3 hours. Flirtation wrapped in support. Compliments laced with contempt for Mason. He never saw your brilliance, she murmured at one point. He was intimidated. When she finally left, she hugged me too long. Her perfume lingered in the hallway, a chemical blend of remorse and intention. I closed the door, checked the recording, and played back her exact words. The mic caught everything, the tremor in her breath when she said feelings, the false intimacy in different circumstances. I exported the file and titled it Confession Baseline. By midnight, another text came through. I can't stop thinking about tonight. I think I've had feelings for you for a long time, maybe even before Mason. I'm sorry if that's wrong, but it's the truth. Screenshot. She was no longer just playing chess. She'd started carving her initials into the pieces. When I turned off the phone, my living room went utterly still. The only sound was the pulse I could finally trust again. I thought about how Jessica had engineered chaos in everyone's lives for control, but control cuts both ways. Tomorrow I would stop collecting. Tomorrow I would start using it. Revenge doesn't always arrive with fury. Sometimes it comes dressed as order, folders labeled, evidence sorted, heart rate stable. I looked at the closed laptop on my table and whispered to no one in particular. Let's turn on the lights. The trick to revenge is patience, not anger. Anger makes noise. Patience is silent, deliberate, and fatal in its precision. I waited 3 days. 3 days of polite replies to Jessica's avalanche of messages. 3 days of pretending I didn't notice the way she'd started using emojis with hearts, how every text ended with "thinking of you, beautiful." Then, on Thursday morning, I sent her the line she'd been dying to read. Me, dinner tonight? I could use the company. Her reply came in under 60 seconds. Jessica, absolutely, I'll bring wine. What time? 7, I texted back, and set my phone down on the counter next to the folder titled Lighting, Phase 3. Inside were 57 screenshots, 12 voice recordings, and one purpose. At 6:55 p.m., headlights swept across my driveway. I watched through the window as Jessica stepped out of her car, balancing a bottle of red and a bag from an expensive bakery. She wasn't dressed like a friend dropping by. She was dressed like a confession she intended to be forgiven for. Black dress, heels, hair blown out. She paused at her reflection in the glass of my front door and fixed her lipstick. The gesture wasn't for me, it was for control. When I opened the door, she smiled like she'd been invited to the last scene of a romance film. Naomi, she breathed, stepping inside. You look amazing. Recovery suits you. Wine? I asked. She held it up. Cabernet. Thought it matched your energy. I smiled thinly and led her to the table. Dinner was simple. Grilled vegetables, rice, a single candle, nothing romantic, just enough for civility. Jessica filled both our glasses, then launched into practice chatter. Work's been insane. New campaigns. Clients are impossible, but... She leaned in, eyes warm. You've been on my mind constantly. It's crazy, right? Maybe not crazy, I said, folding my napkin. Human, perhaps. She laughed, the sound sharp at the edges. Exactly. I'm just tired of pretending. Life's too short for half-truths. Agreed. For a while, I let her talk about how she'd always admired me, how Mason never really understood what he had, how she wanted to start fresh. Every line was calculated, the perfect cocktail of apology and seduction. Then I asked quietly, Jessica, can I be honest too? Her face lit up. Please. I reached for my phone, tapped the screen, and played the recording from 3 nights earlier. I told Mason to take a break from you. I was jealous. I sabotaged things because I wanted him to fail at love. Her voice filled the dining room like static. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then her smile collapsed. What is that? Evidence, I said calmly. She stared at the phone. You recorded me. Naomi, that's... Legal, I interrupted. One-party consent, remember? And I am very much one of those parties. Her eyes flicked to the laptop on the counter. What did you do? I opened it slowly, turned the screen toward her. Folders lined the desktop. Dates, times, transcripts. The email draft sat ready, addressed to Mason and hr@pinnaclemarketing.com. Inside the attachments, every screenshot, every voice note, every time-stamped confession. Jessica, I said, my voice steady, I thought Mason should know what really happened to our relationship, and I thought Pinnacle should know what kind of sabotage you bragged about during your little guilt trips. She went pale. Naomi, please don't. You don't understand. Then explain it. Her composure cracked like ice underfoot. It wasn't supposed to go this far, she blurted. At first, I just wanted him to question you, to think maybe you weren't right for him, but then... She pressed her palms to her temples. Then it became about Mason's career. I stayed silent. The quiet made her unravel faster. I started interfering. I changed numbers in his client decks, delayed emails, deleted files before presentations. I made him look careless so I could step in and fix things. I thought if he depended on me again, he'd come back. I blinked. You were undermining his job? Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice sharpened. You don't get it. He used to belong to me, Naomi. Everything fell apart when you showed up. I lost him, and I wasn't going to lose control of my own life, too. I exhaled slowly. You already did. Her eyes widened as I clicked send. The email flew into the cloud with a quiet whoosh, a simple sound, but it landed like a gavel. Jessica lunged forward, panic breaking through the mascara and perfume. You can't. Please, Naomi, you'll ruin me. I stood, backing toward the door. No, I said evenly. You ruined yourself. I'm just turning on the light. She started crying, loud, messy sobs that didn't sound like remorse, only fear. You don't understand what she'll think of me, she whispered. She? Mason's manager. She's the one who already suspects something. If she sees those recordings, she'll know what I did. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And Mason will know. I got him written up, twice. For a second, she looked like a child realizing the fire she'd started might burn her house too. I didn't speak. The silence did the work for me. Jessica began to spiral, pacing, muttering half-truths and full confessions. I didn't mean to make him lose confidence. I didn't mean to make him hate you. I was just jealous. So jealous I couldn't breathe. Finally, I opened the door. You should go, Jessica. She hesitated, eyes wide and wet. Please, can't we fix this? You don't fix poison, I said. You flush it out. She stumbled into the night, sobbing, and I locked the door behind her. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Mason. I let it buzz twice before answering. Did you really send me? His voice broke. Did you record her saying all that? Every word. He was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, it was small. She got me written up. I thought I was losing my edge. I thought it was my fault. It wasn't, I said quietly. I don't even know what to say. Then don't, I told him. Just listen to the truth, all of it. We stayed on the phone for almost 2 hours. He cried once, softly, the way men do when the floor they trusted vanishes beneath them. When the call ended, I felt no triumph, only clarity. That night, Jessica sent 37 messages in a row, pleading, apologizing, threatening, looping back to begging. At 2:04 a.m., the last one read, You've destroyed me. I just wanted to be loved. I didn't reply. Some traps don't need springs or teeth. Sometimes all it takes is truth, and someone finally willing to hold up the mirror. By dawn, the sun poured through the kitchen window, washing the empty wine glasses in soft light. I stared at them, remembering her words. Life's too short for half-truths. She was right about that. It's strange how quickly chaos can quiet itself once the truth starts working through it, like a house fire that burns everything down to the foundation. What's left is ugly, but at least it's honest. The morning after I sent that email, the fallout began. By noon, Pinnacle Marketing's HR department had called Mason in for questioning. By evening, 2 more employees had come forward. Jessica hadn't just sabotaged Mason's work. She'd been rewriting other people's projects too, changing deadlines, deleting assets, whispering concerns about coworkers into the right ears. Every lie had been a seed, and now the entire company was a field of weeds she'd planted herself into. They suspended her before the day was over. By the next morning, she was fired. I didn't hear this from her, of course. Jessica's number had been blocked. I heard it from Mason. His voice was flat, hollow. She's gone, he said. Pinnacle's bringing in a forensic IT team. There's talk of legal action. A pause. She even hacked my work email, Naomi. There are login records. She sent messages under my name to clients. Do you know what that means for me? Yes, I said quietly. It means she wanted to make sure you fell alone. He exhaled, ragged. I keep thinking about that night at Bella Vista. The way she said it wasn't about her. It always was, wasn't it? Always, I said. There was silence between us. The kind that feels heavy but necessary. The kind that lets 2 people start to understand what damage really costs. Then he said, You didn't have to do all this. You could have just walked away. I tried that once, I told him. Turns out some messes clean themselves only when someone starts the wash. He laughed softly. It wasn't happy, but it was real. A week later, Pinnacle's HR rep called to thank me for the evidence package. Their words, not mine. They confirmed Jessica's manipulation extended across 3 departments, that 2 women had filed official complaints. They might press charges for workplace sabotage and harassment. I didn't gloat. I just said, I hope everyone she hurt gets to start over. The HR rep was quiet for a moment, then said, So do we. That same afternoon, Mason showed up at my house. He looked smaller, not physically, but in the way people look when they've been emptied of illusion. He held a box. I thought you should have this, he said. Inside was the engagement ring I'd once planned to give him, the one he never saw, but somehow still broke. He'd found it when he came to return the sweater I'd left at his apartment months ago. I don't deserve it, he said. No, I agreed. You don't. Then I closed the box and handed it back. But I'm not giving it to you. I'm giving it to me. He frowned. What do you mean? I spent months designing something beautiful for a future that died on schedule, I said. I might as well keep it as proof that I can build something worth keeping, even if it wasn't for you. He nodded slowly, eyes wet. You're incredible, Naomi. I'm sorry for everything. I know, I said, but apologies don't rewind time. They just stop it from looping. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile people wear when they know there's no way back. Do you think maybe someday? Maybe, I said, but not now. We stood in the doorway for a long time before he left. That night, Marcus dropped by with takeout and a grin that could thaw concrete. Guess who just landed the Riverside Shopping Center contract? He said, tossing a file onto the table. $200,000 in landscaping. They said they loved your sustainable design proposal. I blinked. The one I almost didn't send because I was in the hospital? Yeah, he said. Turns out being alive is good for business. We laughed, and for the first time in weeks, it didn't sound hollow. Later, when the house was quiet, I opened my laptop one last time. The folder named Lighting sat there, heavy and finished. Inside were screenshots, recordings, and transcripts, my private gallery of ghosts. I hovered over the delete button. Then I renamed the folder Closure, because what I had wasn't revenge, it was restoration. The truth wasn't about destroying Jessica. It was about letting the rot be visible so the rest of us could finally grow something new. 2 months later, I got a letter. No return address, but I didn't need one. The handwriting was familiar, neat, deliberate, desperate. Naomi, I lost everything. My job, my reputation, my friends. They call me unstable now. Maybe I am. But for what it's worth, you were right. You turned on the light, and I saw myself for the first time. I hope someday that helps someone else too. J. I folded the letter once, then once more, and slid it into a drawer. Some apologies don't need an audience. Today, my heart beats steady. Creek Valley Landscapes is thriving. My mother still sends me heart-healthy recipes I don't cook. Mason and I speak sometimes. Therapy, mostly. We're not back together, but we're not enemies either. That feels like progress. When I walk past the mirror by my front door, I sometimes catch my reflection and think of Jessica's last words to me before she ran out into the night. You'll ruin me. I didn't ruin her. I just stopped letting her ruin everyone else. People say truth is heavy. I don't think so. I think lies are heavy. Truth just makes the air finally breathable again. I slip the ring onto my right hand sometimes, not as a promise, but as a reminder. Sometimes the trash doesn't just take itself out. Sometimes it takes out all the other trash with it.